I didn't begin gaming with Nintendo. I started before the NES, with systems like the first Atari, back when games were simpler, controllers had one button, and sometimes you needed a little imagination to understand what was happening on the screen. But even though the Atari came first, the Nintendo Entertainment System was the first console that truly hooked me. The NES didn't just give me games to play, it gave me worlds I wanted to disappear into. Super Mario Bros. Made every level feel like a new discovery. The Legend of Zelda gave me an entire world to explore. Games were challenging, mysterious, colourful, and completely unforgettable. That little grey box helped turn gaming from something I enjoyed into something that would remain part of my life for decades. But I didn't stay exclusively with Nintendo. As I grew older, gaming grew with me. New consoles arrived. Technology improved, games became bigger, more cinematic, and more realistic. Over the years, every PlayStation console found its way into my home as it was released, and I loved them. The original PlayStation introduced me to a completely different era of games. The PlayStation 2 had an incredible library. The PlayStation 3 and 4 brought increasingly ambitious worlds, and today I still own and play a PlayStation 5. I became a PC gamer too. PC gaming offered experiences consoles couldn't always provide. Better graphics, enormous game libraries, different genres, and games that could consume hundreds or thousands of hours. There were even several years when I played almost nothing but World of Warcraft. That became its own chapter of my gaming life. For a while, Azeroth wasn't simply one of the places I visited, it was the place I visited. Night after night, I would log in, explore, complete quests, improve my character, and become part of this enormous world that never seemed to stop moving. And I don't regret any of it. Every console, every PC, and every game brought something different into my life. They all helped shape the kind of gamer I am today. But lately, something unexpected has happened. After decades of playing across so many different systems, I find myself enjoying Nintendo more and more again. And with the Switch 2, it feels like I've somehow come full circle. Not because the Switch 2 is the most powerful gaming system I own, it isn't. Not because I've stopped appreciating my PlayStation 5 or my PC. I still enjoy both of them, and I don't expect that to change. It's because Nintendo gives me a feeling that's becoming increasingly valuable to me. Nintendo games still feel like games. They invite me to pick up the controller and immediately begin playing. They're colourful without being afraid of looking playful. They can be accessible without feeling empty, and deeply challenging without needing to be dark or exhausting. There's often a kind of clarity to them. Nintendo rarely seems embarrassed by the simple idea that games are supposed to be fun, and the older I get, the more I appreciate that. When I was younger, I was always excited by the next technological leap. I wanted bigger worlds, more realistic graphics, more complicated systems, and more powerful hardware. I still appreciate those things, but they're no longer the only things that impress me. Now, I'm just as impressed by a game that makes me smile, a game that respects my time, a game that feels polished and carefully designed, a game that makes me curious about what might be waiting around the next corner. Nintendo understood that when I was a kid. And somehow, after all these years, it still understands it now. The Switch 2 feels modern, but the experience it gives me is strangely familiar. I can explore a huge world on the television, pick up the system and continue somewhere else, or sit down for a short session that unexpectedly becomes an entire evening. But beneath the better graphics, faster hardware, and new technology, I can still feel the same Nintendo philosophy that first hooked me on the NES. Press a button, start the game, discover something, have fun. Maybe that's why returning to Nintendo feels so natural. Gaming has changed enormously since the Atari. I've watched it move from cartridges and simple pixels to discs, online worlds, handheld hybrids, and enormous digital libraries. I've owned more systems and played more games than I could ever count. But this isn't a story about abandoning one kind of gaming for another. I haven't given up my PlayStation 5. I haven't walked away from PC gaming. And I'm sure there are many incredible non-Nintendo games still waiting for me. This is simply a story about rediscovering where the feeling began. The Atari introduced me to video games. The NES made me fall in love with them. And now, decades later, the Switch 2 is reminding me why I fell in love with them in the first place. After all those consoles, all those games, I've come full circle. And somehow, Nintendo feels like home again.